Are you going to do announcements to start out? Okay. I'll just
I'll
let.
grab the handheld. I'll let you keep that.
Okay.
Well, good morning, ladies. Glad to have you here today. Looking forward to a great ladies class, the Women of Grace. Grateful that Dee is covering today. Some of you may have heard we were at a great teen event yesterday, and had 16 or 17 of us from our church go out to the event yesterday and really enjoyed the preaching and the fellowship. And then right around lunch yesterday, while my son Eli and daughter Glory were hanging out with Pastor, my son Eli turned to my dad and said, "I don't feel well." And then proceeded to be very unwell the rest of the day. As I told people, I said, listen, my son was completely healthy all day Friday, completely healthy Friday morning, was hanging out. He went, as my dad said, and ate a great breakfast. By the way, I think Eli's watching. Hi, E. And he had a great breakfast. He ate 2 to 3 eggs, bacon, sausage, toast, everything. He had a great meal. And then by about lunchtime, no longer felt well, and spent the rest of the day very, very sick. And then late last night, told me, Dad, I feel better. Woke up with me this morning around 5:30 or 5:20, one of those two, and told me, Dad, I'm ready. I'm hungry. Let's get going. I said, well, babe, we're going to let you take the morning off. We just want to make certain you're all better. So Kyla is staying home this morning, taking care of her, and then Gloria Ann is there to help out because she's such a good little helper. Wanted to let you guys know about a couple upcoming events that are happening in our church. Today is our Children's Worker Appreciation Sunday, and we're going to be honoring Belinda Carter, and grateful for her. But next Sunday is Palm Sunday, and I know that doesn't seem possible, that Palm Sunday is just a week away, but Palm Sunday is a week away from now. And then on the 26th, that's a week from this Tuesday, we're going to be having the mobile food pantry, and we want you to be a part of that if you can. There's a sign-up list for that in a couple minutes. In fact, Virgil will bring in the sign-up list as they finish out in the adult Bible class. And then the 29th, last year we did something. We moved Good Friday to an evening service. We found out that was more effective for many families. And so if you want to come to our Good Friday service on March the 29th at 6 p.m., that would be helpful for you to be able to come and enjoy that. And then Easter Sunday services, we have a 9 a.m. breakfast here at the church, 10 a.m. service, and then an 11 a.m. service. And we'll still have those ladies, Women of Grace, at that 10 a.m. They'll have a special Easter service. And I will let you know, in case you didn't know it, you only have 2 more weeks of the life of Judges. You have this week and next week as you finish out the life of Samson. So grateful for Miss D teaching the lesson on the life of Samson, the first part of the life of Samson, and excited to hear what you guys learn about it. If there's any way we can be helped you, do let us know. I will encourage you, if you can, try to invite out some people for Easter as we get closer. It's always a great day when we can have other people join us for our Easter services. Well, let's go ahead and let's have Miss D come forward with the rest of our class time, and then we'll close at the very end once the class is over. Miss D?
Good morning, ladies. How are you all this morning? Can you hear me? Not that I need a microphone for you to hear me with my loud voice, but that's another story. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Pastor Joe mentioned, we are continuing our study of Judges, and today we are going to be talking about Samson. And you guys all have your little flyer. And what we are doing, let me get to our passage. All right. Our lesson today is in Judges 12, 7 through 15. Would somebody like to read some of these verses?
Starting with 7?
Yeah, starting with 7.
And
Jephthah.
judged Israel 6 years, then died. Jephthah, the Gileadite, and was buried in one of the cities of Gilead. And after him sent abroad, and took in 30 daughters from abroad for his sons. And he judged Israel 7 years, then died Ibzan, and was buried at Bethlehem. And after him, Elon the Zebulunite judged Israel, and he judged Israel 10 years. And Elon the Zebulunite died, and was buried in Aijalon,
Got it.
in the country of Zebulun. And after him, Abdon, the son of Hillel, a Parathonite, judged Israel. And he had 40 sons and 30 nephews that rode on 70 as colts, and he judged Israel 8 years. And Abdon and the son of Hillel, the Parathonite, died and was buried in Parathon in the land of Ephraim, and the mount of the Amalekites.
Thank you. So as we are going through and reading this, we find that throughout Judges, we've seen Israel's cycle of living. Now, we see clearly the failure of Judges. Both the people in Israel and the judges failed when their delight was not in the law of the Lord, for they eventually became ungodly. And Psalms 1:4 is, "The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away." In time, the ungodly become worthless to God and to society, which to me, that is a really key sentence there. I don't think people realize, especially Christians who kind of lose their focus or let society kind of sway their belief and their steadfastness in their beliefs, that we become worthless to God and also to society. And as Ms. Murray was so kind for us to read, we see that judges, they did not rule for long. It's like I'm like you. I'm tongue-tied. Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years and died. Isban judged 7 years and died. And he had 30 sons and 30 daughters, which meant what? He had several wives. And does the Bible tell us that we are supposed to have several wives? Nope. They started to conform to the ways of the society that they lived in. And that's something we have to be very careful of, you know. The devil will convince us, oh, well, it'll okay if I just take a little step off of center of what I really should be doing. And then the next thing you know, you're a mile away, like these people and judges were, and were having multiple wives. And as we go on, we see that Elon judged for 10 years and died. Abdon judged for 8 years and had 40 sons. Again, polygamy with multiple wives. In our little handout we have, this is something that our first little segment here that really struck me. National leaders exert strong influence for good or evil on those that they lead and future leaders. When Israel judges had no conscience against polygamy, which is, of course, multiple wives, Israel went further into moral decline. Samson, who would be Israel's next judge, saw this evil lifestyle in the people of Israel. You know, this first sentence, national leaders exert strong influence for good or evil for those they lead and future leaders. I just ask you guys to think about throughout your lifetime how our leaders guided us from when the leaders that were in power. I was born in the 60s, and I think about the leaders that were in power when I was growing up and their morals and how they guided the country compared to leaders that we have today, be it school board leaders or county commissioners or senators or presidents or governors. They have a lot of influence, and it seemed like when I was growing up that citizens kind of had some influence on our leaders. Like, if they were thinking about passing a piece of legislation, we could go and talk to them and, maybe try to influence them. But it seems like it's almost become that, they've made decisions and they influence us to go the way that they want us to go or they want society to go. So I find that interesting that was happened way back, in biblical times with the judges. Now, Israel has no conscience against polygamy. Their moral decline is in a runaway condition. Oh, wow, does that touch a nerve? Like the Canaanites, most had several wives. National leaders always exert strong influence for good and evil, and Israel's next judge grows up in these surroundings. Today, we learn about Samson's background and his marriage. He, perhaps, is the most colorful character of all Scripture. And in Judges 13:1, angels appear to a woman, which is Samson's mother. And the children of Israel, let me put that up here. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them in the hand of the Philistines 40 years. And there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman and said unto her, Behold now, thou art barren and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine, nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite, unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the land of the Philistines. Now notice verse 5 begins with, to deliver Israel. It would be only partial deliverance. The angel said Manoah's wife would have a son, and she should not drink wine, nor strong drink, or eat anything unclean, for the son should be a Nazarite from the womb. God would prepare him even before birth. But let's not confuse a Nazarite with a Nazarene. A Nazarite was one who took on an Old Testament Nazarite vow. However, a Nazarene means a person from the town of Nazareth. Jesus was a Nazarene, but not a Nazarite. And as we mentioned, Nazarite vow. That means that a person is separated to God, and they would not drink wine, strong drink, liquor of grapes, or eat moist or dried grapes, or anything made from the vine. His separation was to the Lord. He shall be holy, and shall let the locks of hair on his head grow, and he shall come to no dead body, which means if you have a Nazarite vow, you're not supposed to touch any dead body, and that means a dead animal, a dead person, even family members who died that you're not allowed to touch. All the days of the person who takes Nazarite vow is holy unto the Lord. The vow usually lasted a short time, long hair let everyone know he was under a Nazirite vow and could not eat fruit of the vine or come near a dead body. Should a dead animal need moving, the long hair exempted him, and others would not expect that individual to help. And now Manoah will teach us. Whoops. There we go. In Judges 13:6, then the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very terrible. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told he me his name. But he said unto me, behold, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and now drink no wine, nor strong drink, neither eat any unclean thing, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Then Manoah entreated the Lord and said, O Lord, let the man of God which thou didst send come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto this child that shall be born. And God answered Manoah's prayer. The angel came, and he asked the angel to teach them how to train the child that would be born. And after this, the angel ascends in a flame. Okay, well, not going to work for me. Okay. In verse 15, and Manoah said unto the angel of the Lord, I pray thee, let us detain thee until we shall have made ready a kid for thee. Manoah offered the angel food, but the angel declined and said he could offer a burnt offering to the Lord. Manoah asked his name. The angel said, it is secret. Manoah then made a meat offering on a rock, and the angel ascended in the fire. From this, they knew he was a divine visitor. And then down in verse 22, Manoah said unto his wife, we shall surely die because we have seen God. In Old Testament times, people believed seeing an angel meant their death. Manoah's wife convinced him that they would not die. And then we have young Samson in verse 24. And the woman bare a son and called his name Samson, and the child grew, and the Lord blessed him. The Lord blessed Samson to be Israel's next deliverer. He would never lead an army, but be a one-man champion against Israel's enemy. Samson is an interesting character and puzzles some Bible students. Samson has had a free will, just like we all have a free will to decide what we are going to do and not do, serve the Lord, not serve the Lord. And the choices he makes are his. His test will be, will he keep to the Nazirite vow, which his parents taught him? Samson is what the New Testament calls a carnal Christian, one who walks in the flesh. And that's something that we really need to be careful to do. A carnal Christian who is walking in the flesh, I think people nowadays would call a hypocrite. And I think we've all heard people, we know mention, or somebody we're inviting to church, well, I'm not going to go there because, everybody is a hypocrite. And that's what we would consider a carnal Christian. So we have to be very, very careful that we're not a hypocrite, because we're representing God. And if we say that, we love God so much and we want to serve God, and, we become a carnal Christian and, do what the world is doing, of course, people will think that we're phony, and nobody wants to follow a phony or enjoy somebody who you preach one thing and you practice something else. That's kind of a moral compass that I have. It's like, I'm not going to preach something unless I'm practicing it, because I just have seen so many people become bitter and alienated against God because somebody was a hypocrite and, hurt them in some way at, a church that they attended or somebody that they knew. So we want to be very, very careful that we do not become a carnal Christian. And then the Spirit of the Lord. And the Spirit of the Lord, in verse 25, began to move him at times in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. As a young man, the Spirit of God began to move in Samson. He was surrounded by Israelites living ungodly lives, given into the flesh and not obeying God. Samson must decide how he would live. His choice. Either the Spirit of God moving him to obey God, or his sinful desire pulling him to disobey God. Perhaps before reaching manhood, he followed his desires. It is said, no man falls suddenly. There is always a process of wicked thinking. As we read Samson's action, we know the choice he made. And now we're going on to Judges 14:1. She pleaseth him. He's choosing a wife. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughter of the Philistines. Now remember, Samson is an Israelite. And who do Israelites really want to marry? What do they encourage? Israelites. Just like Christians are encouraged to marry other Christians, because if not, it can lead you down a wrong path of sin that you really don't want to go down. And he came, and he told his father and mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her to be my wife. So he's asking his parents, it's like, I found this beautiful Philistine lady, I want to marry her, and I need you to make these arrangements. And do you think his parents were very happy? No. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of the brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistine? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. It shocked his parents that he wanted a Philistine wife. He needed a wife from Israel, not a heathen Philistine wife of the people, who Samson will later pay for fooling around with sin. We have to be very careful with fooling around with sin. There's this saying, how does it go? Sin will take you further than you ever planned to go. So again, we have to be careful taking that first step, because it's like, oh, okay, if I watch this movie that has some things in it I really shouldn't see this one time, oh, that's not going to hurt anything. And then, you'll see something else, oh, and then you'll watch that. And then, it just goes on and on and on. And, before you know, you may be going somewhere and seeing inappropriate things at the movies, or at a theater, or you're doing inappropriate things that you would never have thought of doing when you started out. So we have to be very careful that we guard our minds and our hearts, because it's really easy, especially in the world that we live in. We have all of this, media, society, our politicians, these special interest groups that are trying to convince us that things the Bible says is wrong. Oh, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But if the Bible says it's wrong and not to do it, then it's wrong, and we shouldn't do it, and we should ask God to guide our hearts. One of the things that I pray is put a hedge of protection around me to protect me from the devil's fiery darts, because he's there, wanting to get to you at every chance that he can. And I work for the state of Michigan. And so, of course, we have to have all kinds of diversity training and this and that. So I really have to be very, very careful that I have that protection and that guard up, that I'm not pressured, if you will, into believing the things that they want when you believe that are different than what the Bible tells me that we should do. And I know people say that that's a hard thing to do, which it is. But once you start doing it and standing up, people know what your stance is. It's like, I've worked for the state for 18 years, and I've always made it known that, I'm a Christian, and here's what I believe, and I'm not going to believe otherwise. And you can do that in a very kind, loving way, because all my coworkers know I'm a Christian and know what I believe. But on the same token, I can hear what they're trying to teach me, and I can treat people of any nationality, any race, any genre, any belief they have with respect. And I find that people really respect that if they see that you're really walking the walk that you're talking. That is one of the biggest influences that we can have, because we can be witnessing to somebody and they can easily blow it off. But if you're living the life you're supposed to be, and they see that you're really living it, then they have an air of respect for you in that sense. And I think that most people do. If there's something you believe and you stand up for it, then I think people respect that. So please don't be afraid to, speak up and stand for what is right and what is wrong, because we can see the horrible road that Samson is going down by just following what society is telling him and let the leaders influence him in the wrong way. So now we are getting towards Samson getting his Philistine wife. So now we're talking about the grapes of Timnath. And remember, part of the Philistine vow, the Nazarite vow, is that you're not supposed to drink any wine, have anything to do with anything that has to do with the vine. And so in chapter 14, verse 5, then went Samson down, and his father and his mother, to Timnath, and came to the vineyards of Timnath. And behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mighty upon him, and he rent him as he would rent a kid. And he had nothing in his hand, but he told not his father or his mother what he had done. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. So these verses are saying that Samson in the vineyard ran into a lion, and he killed the lion. And again, part of the vow is you're not supposed to be touching any dead thing. So he just went about his way, and he didn't tell his parents about it. And then again, in verse 5, notice, then went Samson down. And verse 7, again, mentions he went down. Samson's parents could not change his mind, so they went along to arrange wedding plans. Samson should have avoided the vineyards of Timnath because they were grape vineyards. When a young lion roared at him, as I mentioned, Samson killed the lion with his hands, but he did not tell his parents, for it violated his Nazarite vow. Samson opened himself to temptation and to Satan. And we all, I think, are familiar with 1 Peter 5:8, Satan who goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And after a time, Samson returned to take his wife, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. So what did Samson do? He ate the honey and gave his parents some, but he didn't tell them how he got the honey, where he got the honey, for they would know he had broken his vow in touching the lion's carcass. Because remember, you're not supposed to touch any dead thing. So, he violates it, and not only does that, he's like disrespecting his parents by getting the honey and giving it to them. And at the wedding feast, Samson is given 30 Philistines to be his companions, and he entertains them with a riddle. And Samson's riddle is in verse 14. Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they could not in 3 days expound the riddle. He gives them this riddle, hey, can you answer this riddle? And he gave him 3 days to do it. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they said unto Samson's wife, entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? So basically what Samson said was, I have this riddle for you. And he tells them the riddle, and he's like, okay, it's like, if you can answer this riddle, I'll give you 30 garments. And if you can't answer this riddle, you have to give me 30 garments. So after, as the Bible says, after 7 days, they couldn't figure out the answer to the riddle. So they go to Samson's wife and says, hey, convince your husband to tell you what the riddle is so that we can do this. Otherwise, we're going to burn you and your father's house with fire. If she doesn't get the answer. So she pleads with Samson. So on the 7th day, he gives her the answer. The Philistines say, what is sweeter than honey and stronger than a lion? Samson said, if we had not plowed with the heifer, ye had not found out this riddle. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and slew 30 men, and took their spoils, and gave change of garments unto them, which answered the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. So they answered the riddle correctly for Samson, and he had to get 30 garments. So what does he do? He goes and kills 30 people, 30 men, takes their garments, and gives the garments to these people that answered the riddle, because he owed him that. And Samson killed 30 Philistines to get clothes for the 30 companions. And then in anger, he and his wife returned home to his parents. Satan was already winning in Samson's life. In our next lesson, we will see Samson's tragic end. So, kind of as a review of what we've learned today, Samson slowly starts slipping away from serving the Lord. He's letting these influences guide him, ungodly influences guide him, because, as we learned, it's like we all have free will and a free choice. So slowly and slowly, Samson makes wrong choices to the point where he's killing 30 people because they answered his riddle correctly. All of that is definitely violating his Nazirite vow, and that was a very, very important vow, and a very visual vow, because as it mentioned, in the passages that we read that if you had a Nazirite vow, you never cut your hair, so you could tell what gentleman had a Nazirite vow because of their long hair. So you were a walking example, if you will, of a Nazirite vow that you had made to God. So everybody knows that, you make this vow that you want to serve God from the time you're born until the time that you die. And so it's very obvious to everybody by these things that are happening that Samson is violating his vow, and that will cause a tragic end for Samson. And again, our key verse was Psalms 1:4. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Judy, would you like to come up here and close us in prayer?
Our Heavenly Father, thank Ms. Dee for giving us a message this morning on Samson. Open our hearts that we hear what you wanted her to say to us, that we will listen, that you will guide us